So moving on to unit 2. Um, I forgot to mention in the other video, I do want you to keep your unit 1 review in your folder, in your binder. So that one would have been page 21. Now with unit 2, you should be receiving a new cover page. And so that would make this first set of or first page of notes in unit 2, page 23. And of course, technical glitches as always. But for this lesson, you will not need a calculator. Yay, right? Identifying functions. Functions. Functions are like machines, okay? Think about a vending machine in a cafeteria, right? If Carson puts in B3, what do you think he's going to get? He puts in B3, yes, obviously he's going to get some Twix. Okay. But if Benny puts in A2, what does he get? Trail mix. Trail mix. Okay. Now, if 5 people in a row put in B4, what should they each get? Well, if things are going good, if they're still in stock, they should all get recess. So functions is the same as like a vending machine. Each input only has one output. In other words, each code only oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. Each code will only give you exactly one product, right? A function is a relation or a rule that assigns each input exactly one output. And I don't know why my pen is lagging. Okay. Each X value is paired with exactly one Y value. Okay. A graph that is a function will pass, when it comes to graphs, it will pass the vertical line test, where any vertical line that you draw, could be multiple, on a graph will pass through only one point. Now, what is a vertical line? A lot of students get confused with vertical and horizontal. So I like to teach them this trick. Horizontal starts with the letter H. It gets split with a horizontal line. Vertical, you can actually, yeah, vertical can only be split with a vertical line up and down. Okay. Horizontal and vertical. So a vertical line is a line that goes up and down. If you didn't know, now you know. For each problem below, circle the letter of the representation that is a function, then write a sentence to explain why the other representation is not a function. Give me a second. Okay, so main idea, or the one thing that you need to keep in mind when it comes to functions, most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to functions is that the X value does not repeat. Anytime they ask you questions on the STAR test, more than likely they're not going to ask why it does why it's not a function. They're just going to want to know which one is a function or which one is not a function. So we're going to focus on that. We are going to explain why it's not a function, but your main focus is find the one where the X value doesn't repeat. Okay. Anyway, X value does not repeat in a function. So because we're only focused on the X value, that's a big thing. With functions, you're only focused on the X value. Because we're only focused on the X value, I tend to tell my students, let's go ahead and highlight the X values. This is a table. and scratch out the y values. You don't want to get caught up looking at the wrong number or focusing on the wrong thing. Okay, so if you look at A, do you notice if any of the numbers repeat? Yes, you see that the -9 repeats, so this one would not be a function. Okay, your x value cannot repeat. X value -9 repeats. That would kind of be like saying you're going to put in B3 and A2, and both times it's going to give you Twix. It doesn't work that way, okay? Your X value cannot repeat. Only one input for one output. B, if you look at the numbers 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, none of those are repeating. So this one, yes, would be a function. Okay, so our function in this one is B. Look at number 2. Number 2, we have a graph. With graphs, we just went over it. A graph that is a function will pass the vertical line test. What is a vertical line test? Whenever you draw a vertical line, if it only touches one time, it's a function. But notice here we have multiple points. So that time, that vertical line only touches 1 point. This vertical line only touches 1 point. This one only touches 1 point. This one only touches 1 point. So since each vertical line that I drew only touches 1 point, A is a function. Okay, look at B. This vertical line only touches 1 point, so that means it's a function, right? This one only touches 1 point, but if you go to that third vertical line, it touches 2 points. That would mean that B is the one that is not a function. Now, if you are asked for an explanation on the STAR test, you would say that it does not pass the vertical line test. If it's one of those fill in, essay, blank, whatever answer, you would just say it does not pass the vertical line test. Now, some students get a little confused, like, okay, well, why? Because it's going through 2 dots. Well, think about what points it's going through. It's going through 2, 2, and it's going through 2, -1, right? In every point, you're given an X and a Y value. Oh man. There you go. Okay. You're given an X and a Y value, and notice you have the same X value 2 times. You cannot have the same X value twice. So that's why not a function. It did not pass the vertical line test. With a map, throughout the years, I've had students tell me, well, my teacher taught me one boyfriend can have more than 2 girlfriends or something like that. I don't know. That was always confusing to me. You want to, with maps, look at each pair of arrows or look at each arrow. Each arrow is going to pair up 2 numbers. So if we look at this one, 5 pairs up with 3, 2 pairs up with 12, 9 with 20, 13 with 20. Same concept though, you do not want to focus on the Y values. So to make this easier, I always tell everybody that you need to make a table out of this map. So -5 pairs up with the 3, 2 pairs up with the 12, 9 pairs up with the 20, 13 pairs up with the 20. Same concept as the table above. You want to scratch out your Y values and only focus on the X values. You notice that neither one of these repeats, so this one is the function. X values do not repeat. Look at B. Most students, where they get confused is should 2 arrows or can 2 arrows be coming out of the X or can 2 arrows be pointing to the Y's? That's why I like to draw the tables, okay? It eliminates any silly mistakes. So you have one arrow connecting the 25 with the -5, but you have another arrow connecting the 25 with the 5. 110 and then 225 with 15. You scratch out the Y values because we're only focusing on X, and you notice that the 25 repeats. So this one is not a function. not a function. Flip it over to the back. Pretty straightforward, right? Now you have a set of ordered pairs. With every ordered pair, remember, they give you an X and a Y value. So we're only focusing on the very first number in each set. Go ahead and scratch out the second number in each set. And look at those numbers, 10, 4, 12, 3. None of those repeat. So this one would be a function. Easy peasy. Number 5. Scratch out the Y values, only look at the X values. You notice that negative 0.2 repeats. So this one is what? Not a function. You cannot put the same code in and get two different things, right? Number 6. A lot of students get confused with these types of graphs. What you are focusing on is the graph, not the grid, okay? Ignore the X and the Y axis. You're only focusing on the line that is graphed, right? So if I draw a vertical line anywhere on this graph, it touches 3 times, which is 2 or more, right? So the X value is repeating both times. So this one is not a function. Why is it not a function? It does not pass the vertical line test. Doesn't pass vertical line test. Does not pass the vertical line test. Number 7. Remember, don't get caught up looking at the X and the Y axis. That's not the focus. The focus is only on the line that is graphed. So it doesn't matter if I draw a vertical line here, here, or even in the middle. It's only going to touch it one time. So this one is a function. Why? Because it passes the vertical line test. Okay. Number 8. Scratch out your Y values, only look at your X. None of those numbers repeat. So this is a function. Number 9. Always helpful to draw a table. 6 connects to the 15. 6 connects to the 9. 12 connects to the 27. 12 connects to the 21. Scratch out the Y values, but you notice that both 6 and 12 repeat. So what would this be? Not a function. Easiest practice ever, I hope. Now, where it gets a little tricky is the way that they ask for it on the STAR. They've been coming up with some new questions on the STAR test. Sorry, not the way they ask it. They've just been coming up with different ways to ask about functions. So let's look at it. Mia sells headbands for $8.50 each. The situation can be represented by y is equal to 850x, where x is the number of headbands sold, y is the amount of money. Does this situation represent a function? Yes or no? Well, where they're helping us out at is the fact that they give us an equation. When they give us an equation, we can easily find a graph, okay? Once we're able to get access of a graph, it makes this problem so much easier. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to graph it. So in order to graph an equation, remember, it has to be solved for y, or the y has to be by itself, okay? If the y is by itself, you can easily type it in the calculator. So you go to y equals, which is the upper left-hand corner, very top, and you're going to type in your 850. X is the button right next to alpha, right next to the green on the right side. You'll see an XT, degree sign, and N. Just type that, and you'll have your X. Okay, now to see the graph, you go to the very end of the top row, hit graph, and you notice you have just a straight line. So it doesn't matter where I draw a vertical line, it's going to pass the vertical line test. So this one will be a function. Okay, now you can get other types of equations. I forget how to draw that one. So I'm just not going to go over it. But If the whatever equation they give you gives you something that looks like that, you'll know it's not a function. Now, this is the way I have seen it on the STAR test in recent years. So the set of ordered pairs is missing an X value. Give a missing value that would result in a function, meaning I can add it to the function and it's still a function because we're only focusing on these, on our X values. What numbers can I add? Think about it. I can add 1, I can add 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's so many numbers I can add. So with this one, I would just say any value that is not -8, -1, or -9. If I put a -8 here, it's going to repeat. If I put a -1, it's going to repeat. If I put a -9, it'll repeat. So you just want to put in any value that is not those. Give a missing value for X that would not result in a function. Well, with this one, it's backwards. You only have those three options. Only -8, -1, -9. You can only put a -8, -1, -9 in that spot in order for it to repeat, in order for it to not be a function. Okay. All right, time for you guys to practice. It is an easy practice, so make sure you're getting caught up with whatever you need to get caught up on.